Katz and Cosby, entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Let's go right, though, to Professor Alan Dershowitz. By the way, he has a new book out called Could Trump Serve a Third Term? And Professor Dershowitz, the Democrats today are saying 25th Amendment. Where were they during Biden, where you could make the case the guy felt like he was in a coma? But go ahead.
Before we get to that, I want to indicate that, all through my career when I was defending people, half of my cases pro bono, I always defended policemen free of charge. I think it's so important for policemen to have adequate defense. Now, in this case, if he appeals, I'm not practicing law anymore in an active way, but I would surely be willing to consult and help his appellate team get a reversal of this conviction.
But Alan, they've already sentenced him.
No, but there's an appeal now.
There's an appeal now.
If he has an appeal, then
he has an appeal.
That is very good news for me.
And I know a little bit about appeals, so I'd be happy to consult with his legal team about that. I've been consulting with President Trump's legal team on some of his matters over the years.
We have right after you, Professor. Right after you, we have the sergeant, the president of the Sergeants Benevolent Association, coming on. So maybe,
go ahead. They pay. Yeah, they don't have to pay me, but I'm happy to help out on a pro bono basis.
Bravo.
Bravo. So thank you very much. That's wonderful.
I agree with everything you said previously.
You can't get a better lawyer than that.
Absolutely.
Well, nobody should go to jail for a spur of the moment effort to help other people, even if you think in the end it was wrong. That's not the way the criminal justice system should operate. Now,
and by the way, Governor Patterson says if he was still governor, he would commute the sentence or pardon him.
Yeah, well, I hope that would happen as well, but I hope it doesn't get to that. I would hope that it would be reversed.
This should be reversed
on appeal.
This should be reversed.
I haven't looked at the transcript, but I'm happy to do that. On the 25th Amendment, this is the most absurd thing in the world. There's never been a more active, competent president in my lifetime. The guy has a bundle of energy. He's the only president who ever gets up in front of the media and talks back to them. He gives as good as he takes. He is the furthest thing in the world from a 25th Amendment incompetent person. And what the Democrats are doing is they're destroying the 25th Amendment. They're turning it into a political tool. It was never intended that way. It was intended for cases like Woodrow Wilson, who had a stroke, and his wife basically took over the presidency for the last few months of his office. It was not intended to resolve political disagreements about a war or about any policies. And so I would think that the Democrats who are calling for the 25th Amendment ought to be rebuked, and they ought to be sent back to law school or elementary school to understand what the 25th Amendment's about. Of course, it could never be invoked here because you need a majority of the cabinet or the vice president and the vice president, not or, and the vice president, or then you need there are other safeguards. So I don't think there's a risk that the 25th Amendment could be invoked, but shame on anyone who says it should. It's an absolute distortion of the Constitution. I know what the history of the 25th Amendment is. I've read the legislative history. I know what it was intended to do. It was intended to be, when we were kids, there was always that box in the school with glass, and it had an axe in back of it, and it said, open only in case of emergency. Yeah, well, that's what the 25th Amendment is. When you have a president who's had a stroke, a heart attack, or anything like that.
Well, they didn't invoke it under President Biden.
No, and they shouldn't have, because he didn't quite qualify for that either. President Reagan, in the last few months, we don't know yet when the Alzheimer's kicked in, when it didn't kick in, but that's what it's intended for. And because these are matters of degree, rarely do you get something like Wilson. A person has a stroke, it's done. Usually, if it's Alzheimer's or senility, it gradually develops over time, as it did with Joe Biden. Clearly, he was impacted. The question is, did he reach a point where the 25th Amendment should be invoked? I don't think so. And Trump, it isn't even a close case with Trump. It's a complete distortion of the Constitution. And people who invoke it should be ashamed of themselves.
Now, Professor, what do you make of all the Democrats also talking about the War Powers Act and already saying if they get the House, they're going to try to impeach. If they get the House and the Senate, they're going to try to impeach and remove.
Well, even if you did violate the War Powers Act, that wouldn't be a ground for impeachment. Impeachment is treason, bribery, other high crimes, and misdemeanors. And so none of that applies here. We had a case some years ago where the President of the United States, Johnson, who succeeded Lincoln, was impeached for failing to follow Congress's law. And the Supreme Court a few years later said, no, that's not a ground for impeachment. So the President Trump's first impeachment was unconstitutional. I think President Clinton's impeachment, for different reasons, was probably unconstitutional. And the idea that a president can be impeached because you disagree with his policies over a war undercuts completely what the impeachment was. Remember, I defended President Trump in front of the Senate, so I read every word of the constitutional debates about the impeachment provision, and they were never intended to apply to anything that President Trump has done. So President Trump's going to, with the help of the good Lord, who decides who lives and who dies, if he lives, he's going to serve out his complete term. He will not be 25th. He will not be impeached. He will, no matter who's in Congress, it won't happen. It's just a ploy by the Democrats to try to embarrass him and to try to embarrass the Republican Party. And they so easily forget that what is used by the Democrats against the Republicans can someday be used by Republicans against the Democrats. So it shouldn't happen on the basis of the Constitution itself.
And before we let you go, Professor, you and I were talking about this one.
I want the professor to stay on for a few minutes, just to make sure, if you have a few minutes, Professor.
When the sergeant, minutes for you. Yeah.
When the sergeant, the president of the sergeant,
absolutely.
the SBA comes on.
Absolutely. And before we get to that, Professor, because that would be great, is your thoughts on Melania? I mean, this was huge today. She comes out, and I don't know if anybody else in the White House, including her husband, knew she was going to come out, because it was like no comment. But she said, I want anybody involved in the Epstein case, the women, to testify. She also talked about defamation against her too. She said, that all these images out there about her and Epstein, she said they're fake. And she said she met Epstein with her husband. Together, they were at a party in 2000, and Epstein didn't set her up with her husband. She didn't know him before that. She came out swinging. That was an extraordinary moment. I don't think I've ever seen a first lady, ever do that.
No, and the reason she did it, I'm convinced, is she was preempting something.
Yep.
She heard that there was going to be some claim that maybe she was one of Epstein's victims, maybe she had a relationship with him. All of that's false, because, I debriefed Epstein. I asked him about every prominent person. He told me everything because he needed to tell me that in order for me to help him get the best possible deal, which is the job of the defense attorney. And I asked him specifically about the Trumps. I asked him specifically about the Clintons, and there was nothing there. There's absolutely nothing there. But I'm sure she was out there preempting, and I think she was right to do it. I'm also happy that she wants the alleged victims to testify under oath, because half of them would be committing perjury. Let me tell you what.
It works both ways.
Half of the people never met Jeffrey Epstein. Their sleazy lawyers from Palm Beach have been approaching these women and saying, if you say you had a massage with Epstein, you'll get $50,000. I get 20 of it. You get 30 of it. These people are coming in and making up stories. So I can't wait for them to testify under oath. There are three categories of people. There are the real victims, and there are real victims, the ones who are underage, the ones who can't consent. Then there are the ones who came back over and over and over again for their $150, $200. Then there are the ones who came back and then were hired to go out and find new girls for $250. They were both victims and perpetrators. And then there were the fakes, the ones who had never met Epstein. And, of course, I was the victim of a fake. The woman who accused me, I never met her, never heard of her. Finally, she admitted she may have misidentified me after claiming to have sex with me 7 times unprotected. She said, whoops, maybe I misunderstood. Maybe I mistaken him for somebody else, and she withdrew all of her charges. So it's very, very, very important for the truth to come out, and the truth requires both sides, real victims compensated, fake victims who are lying and who would lie under oath, prosecuted.
Yeah, it covers everybody. So let's see. Look, I think, like you said, have the truth come out wherever it is. If the victims are victims, they deserve their day in court. If they're not, those who are falsely accused deserve their day in court too. Professor, stay with us because I understand we have Vinny Valalong. He is the president of the Sergeants Benevolent Association.
Let's put him on right now.
Yeah. He is on right now. We've got Vinny Valalong. And Vinny, first of all, Professor Dershowitz, why don't you repeat? You want to repeat what you just said earlier to about this case with Sergeant Duran of the NYPD, your offer to the head of the Sergeants Benevolent Association?
Yeah, Mr. President, I am honored to speak to you. I love police. I learned how to play baseball at the PAL in Borough Park in Brooklyn. And so I've always been a tremendous fan of New York police, and I've always defended policemen free of charge. And I offer to consult and help his legal team on his appeal because I want to see this conviction reversed.
That is something I will never say no to.
Okay, good.
Wow.
No charge.
We made a deal here on WABC.
Breaking news.
Where's the breaking news? Here it is. Breaking news. Here we go.
Breaking news. WABC.
So there you just heard it. Professor Alan Dershowitz, the best out there, offering his services free of charge, to help, assist in the defense of, Sergeant Duran after this horrible, I think, miscarriage of justice by the judge today.
Well, I hope we can get reversal.
Yeah.
I hope we can get justice done for him. He deserves it.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to make sure that we connect you guys. Professor Dershowitz, thank you.
The first thing that has to be done is he has to be getting bail pending appeal. There is absolutely no reason why he should not be free pending appeal.
I can't understand the judge remanding him. I never would have remanded him at all.
No, of course not.
He has links to the community, has an honorable record. He's not a flight risk. It's ridiculous to remand him.
My personal opinion, maybe the judge should be brought up on charges.
Well, let's wait one at a time. Let's try to get him off first, and then we can decide what to do.
Thank you, Professor.
Help, so have the lawyers call me. You can reach me through the folks at ABC.
You can reach
call me, and I'm happy.
Vincent, you can reach me. You can reach the professor through me.
Perfect. Professor, thank you so much.
Thank you,
and
Professor.
Good luck, and I hope justice is done finally.